I've been editing some video. I just finished the second part of the XP at Pine Coulee Adventures, and I got a message back from the people that sold me the 1100 CDI box on eBay. It looks like they're not going to help me out. So I went ahead and I ordered a programmable CDI box, and I will talk more about that when I get it. Hopefully there's no issues with shipping or getting screwed around by the company that I purchased it from, but I'll talk more about that in another video. The reason why I started filming is because while I'm waiting for the CDI box, I decided that I should probably do a little bit more work on this. I don't know how much I'm actually going to do. I might think of something that is more important to do at this point. But I ended up laying down a piece of leftover carbon fiber from the skinning of the hull. Once I laid this first layer down, I thought, oh, I could just continue in carbon fiber and just get it done. The problem is this first one is probably going to have issues. It's probably not going to turn out properly, and I would have wasted a lot of money in carbon fiber. The reason why I would want to build one in carbon fiber right away, one would be time savings, but the other would be that this is going to use up probably about 600 grams of epoxy, and this epoxy is not cheap. It's a little over $200 a gallon, so this is going to use up a pretty hefty chunk of my epoxy doing this one test piece. So if the test doesn't turn out properly, I might not be terribly confident about doing the next one in carbon fiber, so I might actually have to end up doing a couple of tests before I go ahead and make the carbon fiber one. All of that to say, I was going to ask you guys what to do, but I think I have to basically build one out of fiberglass and see how that goes. What I might do is build this one with the idea that it could be used for the 650 or A650. Not nearly as heavy and not nearly as much power or torque, so I could probably get away with a weaker bed plate. But we'll see. We'll see what it feels like when it's done, or if it even turns out at all, or if I follow through with it. I now have 2 layers of the green carbon fiber down, and I'm going to try putting this layer of 1mm fiberglass down. If it goes well, I will continue, and if not, I might try laying carbon fiber, because the carbon fiber actually seems to lay down easier than the fiberglass. And the reason why is because the fibers themselves, or the toes, actually has enough kind of rigidity or structure to itself to kind of allow you to shape it. I don't know that I'll actually be able to capture that on video, but I'll try at some point to show you guys what I mean. But for now, I'm going to try fitting this. Well, that went better than I expected. I was able to get it laid down and didn't mess up the weave horribly anywhere. I mean, this is not going to be cosmetic. This is underneath the first 2 layers. But still, I don't want to damage the weave too much because that will weaken the part. But I haven't trimmed it up yet. I'm going to trim it up and then continue laying glass. The next piece that I lay is going to be some of this fiberglass. This stuff here, 6-ounce 2x2 twill, I think it is. Or is it just... No, it's just plain weave, so it's not 2x2 twill at all. But I'm going to lay some of that next, and we will see how it goes. I will come back after I've trimmed this up and tried to put some of that stuff on. It seems to be working out well. I got the 6-ounce cloth down pretty easily. Didn't go down quite as nice as the carbon fiber, but there's no big creases or bulges in it anywhere. All of these lumps and stuff that you see here are all just shapes in the bed plate that need to be there for clearance around bolts on the engine and stuff. I've been working on this and actually fired it up today. I still need an intake manifold, but now I've switched back over to this and I'm actually putting on the last 2 layers of carbon. I've decided to use some scrap carbon to do the bottom layer as well. That way the outside layers will be covered in carbon, and I'll be able to see what the surface finish is like. So right now this is what I have. I have 2, 4, 6 layers of the 6 ounce, including the carbon fiber 6 ounce. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of this stuff here, the 1mm woven roving. So right now what I'm doing is adding the last 2 layers of carbon. I'm doing split layers like this, overlapping a little bit. And then the last layer I'm going to do 1 full sheet, or try to do 1 full sheet. Same thing I did on the top side. I thought I would try to film a little bit of the process since I've kind of figured out how to do this. So what I've been doing is sticking it down along this center line, and then I stick it down along here, and I stick it down. I know you guys can't see that, but I'll try to grab the camera and show you, I guess. I stick it down out to the edge, so I gotta make sure to lift on this and pull it in. What tends to happen is this part will stick on the edge that it's touching on, and then when you push here, it'll damage the weave there or make it look poor. So you got to make sure that it's not stuck before you get to, you got to make sure it's not stuck before you actually want it stuck down. So now I've got that stuck. I can't hold the camera to do the rest of this. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that I've got plenty of slack here, and I pull the cloth at an angle through here and start working it down over this edge. I don't know if it'll turn out perfect this time, but you can see the cloth kind of bunches together. Not bunches together, but I actually did make it bunch there. I'm rushing this for filming and because this layer is going to be underneath, so it's not really a cosmetic layer. All right, now I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to stick it down along this section. I think the most important piece is not to get ahead of yourself. You want to make sure that the cloth is only sticking down where you intend for it to stick down. All right, you can see it's all bunching up here. So I got to very carefully kind of push it down through, but I don't want it to stick down yet. All right, this side worked better than the other side. I got it to sit in there quite nicely without wrecking the weave too much. So there we have it. You're supposed to use as little of this stuff as possible, but I'm going to use it to stick down the peel ply. That's what's going on next. All right, I got it on. It didn't take quite as long as I thought it would. I've got this ready to be bagged up now. I might make a couple of changes to it, but I'll go over it quickly for those of you who don't know what this is all about. And for those of you who do, I apologize for my explanation and for the mess that I've made. This is my first time ever doing this, and I kind of know what you're supposed to do, but I have a really hard time actually accomplishing what I'm supposed to do. It's now the following day, and I've probably just showed you guys the clip of this thing with a whole bunch of tape on it. And, well, this is where the tape is now. I decided to redo this to make it a little bit more tidy. I changed a few things around. I added some flow media to move this fitting back. I made the lines a little longer so they actually scoop around the ends of the part, here and here, and I added a resin break all the way along here, and so hopefully that makes for a successful part. Anyway, I'm going to move right along and start modifying my vacuum chamber. Actually, I think what I'll do is I will pull a vacuum on this, so I'm going to bag this up, and then while this is sitting I can modify my chamber, and yeah. All right, what do I do? I need a bigger table because this is not going to work. This hanging over the end like this is just not going to work. Okay, so I now have the bag on. It was less than graceful getting it on there. But now what I need to do is figure out where I want to actually puncture through the bag. Before I do it for the inlet side, I'm actually going to pull a vacuum through the vacuum side. And then once it gets pulled down and I get it fit in place, only then will I poke the hole through here. A lot of this stuff is going to have to get figured out. There's stuff's going to get wrinkled up and whatnot, so I'm going to have to try to put it in place while I pull the vacuum on it. The battery's got 3%, which means it's just about to die, but this turned out better than I thought it would. The infusion mesh laid out better than I thought it would, and the bag pulled into place pretty well everywhere. I'm pretty pleased with it. I might try moving, I might try moving this seam over a little bit, or actually moving it to where this seam is right on this edge here, and it seems to work out quite well. So I might actually get this seam up on this edge. I'm going to flip this lever, and very likely that needle's going to drop. We'll see how much it drops. That will tell us how bad the leak is. Oh yeah. All right, good news. I was able to find the leak. My ears detected the sound of it, so it was fairly bad. I managed to puncture a hole through the bag here somehow. I guess while we're here, it's been a few minutes. I'll open up this valve and see if we have leakage so far. Let's get a good close look at the gauge there. Oh yeah, we still have a leak somewhere. So yeah, the edges of this vacuum infusion mesh stuff is a little bit sharp, and I'm sure the camera probably won't pick up on it, but there is a little jagged edge of the infusion mesh right at the tip of my finger, and it is puncturing through the bag. So I'm going to go around. It somehow ended up getting folded up along this edge. So I'll put a piece of tacky tape there and then check to see if there's any other places where that can happen. All right, people, this is a pretty exciting moment. So the camera automatically turned off. That means it's more than 15 minutes and the part is still holding the exact same vacuum that it was before the camera turned off. So that means that, yeah, it is successfully holding a vacuum. I'll go over this a little bit because those of you who don't do this or don't watch any videos on this might be a little bit confused about what is going on or what's happening. So underneath this plastic is the infusion mesh. The infusion mesh aids the flow of the epoxy, so it helps create a little bit of a void for the epoxy to flow through. Underneath that is what they call peel ply, and you can actually see it under the plastic here. That is to make it easy to release all this stuff from the carbon fiber or from the fiberglass when you're done. Along the edges here, this is bleeder cloth or breather cloth. It's basically a felt material. You can see it along here as well. I'm using it along the edges here to protect it so that I don't get punctures in the bag. But also here I'm using it as what they call a resin break. So ideally what is going to happen when I start introducing resin into here is that it will flow through these lines. These lines are spiral wrap, which you use around wire to keep it organized and protected. And there are two here. I actually made this piece and it's a 3/8 inline with 2 1/4-inch lines because I couldn't find any 3/8 stuff that I could get in a reasonable amount of time. And the epoxy is going to go in through this hole and then be distributed out through these lines, this spiral wrap, and then it will make its way perfectly across the part and it will make it to the other side where it is then trapped or blocked off on both sides, and then it is allowed to cure under a low pressure. Unfortunately, that is a dream world, and that's very likely not what's going to happen. What is probably going to happen is I'm going to start introducing epoxy into here, and because there are paths that are easier for the epoxy to flow and paths that are shorter, the shortest distance across is right through here. And so the epoxy is going to want to rush right across. So to avoid just all of the epoxy getting sucked straight across here and into this tube, I created what they call a resin break. So this, what is it called? Breather cloth goes all the way along the vacuum side. So the vacuum inlet has 1 1/4-inch spiral wrap, which allows the air to be pulled out of the infusion mesh and out of the whole part, and it gets pulled into this line. Ordinarily, what would happen if the epoxy worked its way across and started getting sucked into the line, the areas that weren't wet out or didn't have epoxy in them yet would actually have a tendency to remain dry because the vacuum in those areas would decrease. So what I've done is I've put this felt or this bleeder cloth across here, and what is hopefully going to happen, the epoxy will come across and it flows very easily through the infusion mesh, but once it hits this breather cloth, it will slow down quite drastically. So even after the epoxy gets across, it'll hit here and stop, and the air will still be able to be pulled out of these areas, and so the epoxy will be able to be drawn to these areas. When I start introducing epoxy into the part, it's going to go in through here, through the part, and some of it could make its way out through this hose and actually clog up these valves and destroy my gauge. So I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is actually make a separate inlet on the chamber. So This inlet is going to be for the gauge, and there will be a separate inlet that goes through into the chamber and into a catch pot. So basically I'm just going to use a cup, and that way if any epoxy actually gets sucked through here, or when epoxy gets sucked through here, it will make its way into a catch pot, and for one, it'll be easier to clean out, and two, it won't damage my gauge or my valve. Okay, so the cup fits in there like that. And because it's too tall for it to just fall into, I'm going to just make a little hole in the side of the cup. So I've made an indentation of where the inlet is. And now I'm just going to take my utility knife and cut a little groove that way. A little slit. Why did I call it a groove? Now I can take the cup and just do that. And now even if I bump this or move it around, I know that the epoxy will go in there and it won't fall over. So I'm going to run a piece of 1/4 inch inside of this one over to here, and then I'm going to use a piece of 3/8 over the top, just a short piece, as a coupler to couple these together. And then I will use a piece of tacky tape around the outside to make sure they seal up. All right, I made this little cup holder so that the epoxy won't tip over. I just took a box, cut a hole in it that is basically the same height as the cup, so the bottom of the cup touches the bottom of the box at the same time it is supported by the top, so this won't flip over. I also cut out a piece of 3/8 tubing so that I can now puncture it through here and seal it up. The reason why I didn't do this all at once, the typical way that you would do this is you would set everything up and then you would pull your vacuum on it and test it. I didn't do it that way for a few reasons, but the main reason is that I knew I was going to have leaks, and it was way easier to find them if I just did one thing at a time. So I knew I was going to be putting the chamber together with a catch pot. I knew I was going to be making that modification. And I knew in doing the bagging process, it was probably going to have a leak somewhere. Turned out it had it had 2 leaks through the plastic, and then it had, I think, 3 or 4 more leaks at the seams. Now that I found the leaks in the bag and vacuum tested it, got it good. Then when I vacuum tested the chamber, I knew that if I had a leak, it was in the chamber because this was already tested good. So now the same stands true for this. I'm adding this one thing in, and so if I have a vacuum leak, I don't have to wonder if it's in the chamber lid, in the output line, in the line to the pump, in one of the valves, in the bag, in the hoses, whatever. Now that this stuff is already tested, I know if I have a leak, it's going to be just in this part here. All right, so we're going to hear some hissing for sure when I poke this through, but it might seal up when I push the pipe in. That seems risky. I should have marked on this how far I wanted it to go in. Let's see, does that make sense? Yeah, if I can get it to go in that far, then I'll know it's in far enough. Okay. All right, should I cut this off here? I think so. I like everything to be nice and tidy if possible. Well, this surely has been quite the process to get to this point, and it is a bit of an exciting moment because this is now ready to actually infuse. I'm going to do that in the next video because I am excited about getting this footage out to you guys so that you can see where I'm actually at with this project. It's been a long time coming. I had issues with pumps. I had to get 4 pumps before I actually got one to work. I had to build 2 bedplate molds because I didn't think I was actually going to do an infusion the first time around, so I didn't design the mold to do that. And yeah, it's just been quite the adventure. I'm currently working on the SRX 800. I don't think you guys would have seen any footage of that except for the little teaser at the end of my carbon fiber skinning video. I'm waiting for an intake manifold on that. I think I have everything else done other than some fuel lines and stuff. So I'll be showing you guys a little bit of footage of working on that, and hopefully I get out to ride it relatively soon. And in another video, I'll talk about the story on that. Anyway, that is going to do it for this one. In the next video, we're going to infuse this part. Hopefully it works out and this is a successful part. And then somehow we can strength test it and actually try it in a ski. I have a couple of ideas on how that could be done. But that is going to do it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.